Okay, it's July the 2nd, Monday, and I'm taking a chance here because my battery's kind of low, so we'll see if this all records. So I'm at the beginning of my painting cycle where I start to think about other ideas and what I might want to pursue for the next painting. So I've come up with what I want to do. I've got this building here in San Andreas, and there are actually two buildings. They're both historic, and I'll have to research that and see what they were, but I know that they were something else to begin with. So anyway, normally what I do is I develop an interest in something, or I see something, or I learn something, I view somebody's artwork, or I read about something, and I've got these interests in my mind, and I'm searching usually for an image to go with that interest or concept. So in this case, I took this image back in December of last year, and at the time I was studying about Edward Hopper and his use of light and shadow and his love of geometric forms, and that's really right up my alley. And so ever since then I've sort of been searching for these Hopper-esque type scenes, and of course, I don't have any because I'm not in New York City here, and I'm also not on some island somewhere. He did a lot of New England-y type scenes. So anyhow, I have what I have, and what I found in San Andreas was the image of these two buildings coming together, and I liked the light and shadow from my black and white photographs here. I liked the shapes of the windows and of the overhangs. I liked how these shapes echoed the windows over here. I liked the angular nature of the awnings based on how I was standing taking the photograph. There's just a lot of stuff I like about it, and I try to remember that I'm interested in it, but somebody else might not be. Like Rich poo-pooed this photograph. He didn't think it was very interesting from a photographic standpoint, but I think it's interesting. I like the shadows, the shapes. I like the light. This is actually a white building, so I know it's going to be very bright. It's going to offer great contrast for these awnings, which are blue color. And this building in the background is kind of a yellowish color. So I know it's going to be a great mix of colors and a great mix of geometric shapes and light and shadow. So I think I'm on to something, but we'll see. It could be a bad, terrible, horrible painting and nobody likes it but me. That happens. The second thing that I'm thinking about doing is I've selected this particular composition, and I'll talk about that in another video how I do that, but I'm also thinking about this composition because it's a nice portrait orientation, and I think that kind of gives a different feel to perceiving the town of San Andreas. It makes it seem like these buildings are tall, as opposed to just kind of squat and spread out. It gives a different feeling to it. I really like that. And I also like that this building is taller. I like that this building kind of intersects into it. I like the patterning. And so what I might do here for this is reduce it down to just flat shapes with no shading, no hinted volume of forms, but just flat geometric shapes and color and value. And so this, I think I'm pretty interested in too. So I may do 2 paintings, I don't know. I usually lose interest after the first, but we'll see if I can maybe do 2. I've also been studying about Charles Sheeler, who was a photographer during, most of the 20th century actually. He taught himself photography. He was associated with the Precisionist movement. I've talked about that on my blog. He was working at the same time as Hopper, but he had an entirely different approach, but yet they sort of arrived at similar ends because they were both very interested in geometric forms. Sheeler was more interested in completely flattening out the space that he was working with to a 2-dimensional canvas, if you will. He was a photographer after all. So his approach is a little bit different. So we'll see if maybe I can incorporate both influences and maybe get two different paintings. I think that would be really interesting. So we'll see. The next video is going to be me talking about how do I do the drawing, how do I get the drawing onto the canvas, but most importantly, how did I decide on this arrangement and that arrangement from the same photo. Okay? That's it.